So in today's video, we are playing Mono Green Stompy. Now, the good thing about this deck is that it doesn't require a whole lot of new cards from the new set, but the new cards that it does include are absolutely fucking wild. So, as ever, before we get to the deck list, if you enjoyed this video, maybe you should sling it a like, because it really helps me. Now, if you really enjoyed the video, maybe you should consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed the video, you can do all that, and also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. The links are in the description. Now let's get to that deck list. What does this deck do? What are we looking at here? And essentially, I mean, it's Mono Green Stompy, right? It's easy peasy stuff, but I've opted to play quite a solid ramp package in this form of Gilded Goose, this Plant Boy here, and Llanowar Visionary. Solid options I honestly do not want to take out the deck. They've been absolutely imperative to making explosive starts, because really you just want to blow your opponent out as quickly as possible and start slamming Vorinclexes before they can do anything about it. Then we've got our backbone creature spells, and this comes in the form of Stonecoil Serpent. Now, the reason for this is because against control, which you'll see in one of the games coming up, against, if you can have that against a Dream Trawler, this is so good. The protection means that they can't inflict damage to it, which means they don't gain the life from it, which just means that you can then pile on the pressure. That game is really interesting, so I hope you watch for that one. Next we've got Scavenging Ooze. This should be obvious, you know, Rakdos is still a thing, Crocs is going nowhere, so this is good for that, and you know, any other, you know, graveyard hate, I suppose. Also, you know, you can take cards out your own graveyard, which can be good against rogues, which Stonecoil Serpent is also good against rogues, because you need reach, because they just keep flying over you. So, there's a lot of little intricacies here that actually add to how good the deck is. It's not like lame-ass mono-red, is it? Then we're on Lovestruck Beast. I think a 5/5 with essentially no drawback for 3 mana is just so good. This card just piles on so much pressure and is such an efficient blocker that if you can play this card, there's no reason to not be doing it, which is why it's just so prevalent in today's meta. Like, a 5/5 for 3 is just par for the course in 2021, and it is what it is. Now, with Yorvo comes, I guess, the sub-theme of the deck, which is, of course, counters. Now, we're not doubling down on the counter synergy, but when they come up, they really do hit hard, and Yorvo being one of them, especially works with Vorinclex, and throughout the course of the game, you can just grow Yorvo huge, and that just piles on a huge amount of pressure, which actually, again, came up in a number of games, where just slamming a Yorvo and getting it as big as possible, as quickly as possible, ended up just becoming the win condition of the game. Gemrazer, now, I wish I was able to fit in more Gemrazer into the deck, but I'm finding it very hard to make cuts, because I don't want to really cut anything on the lower curve, because there's a lot of high-costed creatures in this deck. So, where do you make the cut for Gemrazer? And I really don't want to take anything else out the top end, because it's kind of necessary. However, Gemrazer is also kind of necessary. It's just a great catch-all for problem things that are artifacts and enchantments, which just so happens to be lots of different things, especially the Great Henge. And I think that this card is actually just particularly incredible for pretty much everything in the meta. Trample means it fits in with your counters and stuff, so it gets bigger. The reach means that it can protect you from rogues. It hits artifacts and enchantments, which is just, you know, the Great Henge and Elspeth Conquers Death. Card's actually insane. I guess if we're going best of 3, it'd be way easier to make the cuts. But for now, we're playing 2, and I definitely won't want to play less than that. Garruk is just a kind of one-off tech. I suppose if there was any cut to make for Gemrazer, it would be Garruk. But again, when it can just straight up become a win condition with Vorinclex, it's kind of hard to not include the Garruk. Then we've got Questing Beast, which is just... Initially, I was playing Wicked Wolf, because there's like a kind of like sub-theme of food, and I was kind of leaning a bit more heavy into the food, but honestly, just having the haste attacker felt way more valuable than the built-in removal that Wicked Wolf really ever gave. Again, you could probably play both of them in certain builds, and that would actually maybe be better. I don't know, we've not tried that, but for now, in terms of how this deck has been working, Questing Beast has certainly been better. Which brings us on to Battle Mammoth. Now, this card is, again, one of those cards that could come in, could go out. If you have the Battle Mammoths, I would suggest playing them, because this card has just been an incredible contingency plan against any of your opponent's removal, realistically speaking. you know, no matter what, it pays for itself, and if it's not paying for itself in card advantage, it's just being an extremely efficient beater with trample, which is, of course, our entire deck, so there's no reason to not play it. Now, you can also look at Questing Beast as kind of having like a pseudo-trample, because smaller things can't block it, so quite a lot of the deck has trample. And you also give it trample with Gemrazer, so trample has been a particularly efficient part of this deck, particularly when you combine it with Primal Might. This has actually been, honestly, of all the cards in the deck, I think 4 of Primal Might is just straight up required. This allows you to take games way earlier than you ought to be by just pumping your mana into a huge trampler and just going, die? And it's as simple as that. Being good removal, but also just being a great way of ending a game. Which then brings us on to the Vorinclex. Now, the counters synergy that Vorinclex gives isn't even really, in my opinion, like I mean, it is the best thing about it, but I would say just a 6/6 for 6 trample haste guy would be just about playable enough. But when you've got this guy down, then in conjunction with the Great Henge, like, normally in these mirror matches, like with the Great Henge matches anyway, first to Great Henge wins. However, now it's like first to Great Henge and a Vorinclex definitely wins. So that's why we're playing 3 of each. We definitely don't want to clog on them, but we definitely want to see them. Now again, tying in with the counters, we've got Crawling Barrens. So if you've got Vorinclex and you're in a bit of a grindy game, you can just pump up the Crawling Barrens throughout the game, becomes huge fast with the Vorinclex, and then you just fire it into your opponent. So definitely recommend playing this, especially by endgame when you actually might have like a lot of free mana to play with. And then Bonders Enclave is just another contingency plan for trying to recoup some value, because if you're playing against control and it's a longer game, you definitely want to be drawing some cards to be able to get into your threats. And that is pretty much it for the deck. It's super duper solid, really, really fun to play. But also, like I said, there are cards that you can take in and out of the deck list if you so wish. Now, in your 5 cost slot, we've got Vivian and Elder Gargaroth. Personally, I've preferred the Battle Mammoth over the Gargaroth. Gargaroth's kind of fell out of favour a little bit this format, seemingly. But perhaps in the future, Gargaroth might still be the way to go. However, with this, as soon as it hits board, you're definitely getting your value out of it. With Gargaroth, if they remove it, and there's plenty more removal in this format now, it is just a bit of a sitting duck, and you have to be able to attack with it. So, if you don't have the Mythics for Battle Mammoth yet, either of these will do, but I would recommend the Battle Mammoth. Then we've got Old Growth Troll. Now, this does have Trample. This does, when it dies, it becomes like a little bit of ramp, interestingly. And then it can also re-become a guy, so it's really, really cool. Personally, if there's to take anything out, it would be the Yorvo. There's arguments for both. You can try them out, and whatever one you prefer is whatever one should stick. I made the case on the Yorvo, but there's no reason to not play this if you have it and you want to. Then lastly, we've got Tangled Florahedron, which is essentially the replacement for Plant Boy. However, I prefer Plant Boy in this deck because you've got tons of big guys to take advantage of its second effect. Not so much Florahedron, but obviously, again, Florahedron is also a land, so there's big upsides to both of them. So again, you know, you can make arguments for both, which is really, really good, and that's probably the best thing about Magic as a whole. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Let's get to the clips and show you some analysis. So here we are, game 1, and we're up against Boros aggro, and we're starting out with the turn 1 classic play of Land Goose, and that sets you up nicely for the rest of the game. Now this hand is a bit meh, especially after drawing a land for turn, so really I'm thinking, right, we want to get this Llanowar Visionary down as soon as possible, try and sift through some more resources. We get another land, ain't looking too great, but it is only turn 2. So down comes the casket, and that's like, I was basically fine with that. Like, if that's all he's doing in his turn 2, he's not putting down too much pressure, but I'm looking at like what I've got to deal with here, and I'm like, ugh. If he's playing Boros, he's probably playing some kind of aggro deck of some sort, presumably, so I'm like, right, get the Stonecoil down, it's going to protect us. Then comes the Skyclave, which is like, probably like worst case scenario, at least in terms of when you hit a Stonecoil off it, you then, like, you don't get anything back, so hitting a Stonecoil from a Skyclave is pretty big brain shit. Now, it's kind of like, the choices that he was making was very strange. It's kind of like weird mid-range aggro. I don't know what to really call it, but ultimately, our deck just kind of ended up just going off from this point. Down comes the Battle Mammoth, which was in perfect conjunction with the Primal Might. Primal Might being, again, like I said, like MVP card. It's honest to God so good. Now, 2 Luminarch Aspirant, pretty scary. So I'm like, right, well, what we need to do is we need to get his Vorinclex down ASAP, because this just ends up shutting off essentially that whole part of his deck, and it then just doesn't. It's not very scary anymore. So we can pump the Battle Mammoth up a little bit, and then we can swing the Vorinclex in. That way you can't block the Luminarchs into the Battle Mammoth, which theoretically might have been something he would have done, because it's not like they're doing anything anymore, so you need to try and get like some kind of value. But ultimately not swinging in with the Mammoth was definitely correct. And then down comes Henge, in which case Henge is just a little bit too good, and then we could just draw some more cards off Bonders Enclave, and GG from here. Like, it might be on 14 life, or maybe on 2, but ain't looking too great for him, that's for sure. Goldspan Dragon being a fantastic card, I can definitely see that being included in Gruul aggro decks, absolutely. But in this case, it's just not enough, is it? Now, I think this deck is probably kind of interesting. I guess I sort of see where he's coming from, but just ain't good enough, is it? So up against Dimir Rogues, and the good thing is, so against Rogues, you really want to be putting down a huge amount of pressure immediately. Sometimes you can't always do that, but like getting the pressure down is like so important. We've got the Gemrazer as well, so my current plan here is, right, we put down the Stonecoil, put down the Gemrazer, put down the Questing Beast. That's a nice curve there, but obviously we need to watch out for the Rogues having any kind of like counters. Now, the problem is, in these kind of scenarios, it's sort of like, if they've got counters, you just need to deal with it. Like, just play as if they don't have it, and if they do have it, well, they were going to counter your shit anyway, right? So we got rid of the crab, because I find that like the crab is going to be like a bigger issue. I would have played the Gemrazer had I drawn a land. So now I'm like, right, Gemrazer's good. Not like Stonecoil Serpent has reach anyway, but just being able to get like a bigger body, because I just want to end this game like as quickly as possible, realistically speaking. Now the good thing is that it's not looking to be the greatest start to the Rogues player. It's already down to 10, and obviously he can't like give up any of his resources, which is why like trample guys seem to be specifically quite so good against Rogues, because they don't really want to be blocking your stuff, and if they do, there's you know, it's a scary thing. So the Questing Beast is especially good as well, but at this point he ends up stealing our Gemrazer or Stonecoil Serpent. I don't know if what was it considered? I guess it's considered to be Gemrazer, but he ends up stealing it from us, and that's obviously a giant L, but it's not so bad because we've got our Questing Beast back up. It's a shame that our the Great Henge had to be countered there, but I mean, it is what it is, right? We just need to accept it. In this case, he ends up stealing the Gemrazer, but he's on 4, and then he opts to swing in, which I think was a pretty big mistake. He might have lived a couple of turns had he not done that, but bang, Questing Beast out, close the game. And in these kind of scenarios, this is why I think Questing Beast is ultimately better than the Wicked Wolf. Which, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but for a while a lot of people were playing Wicked Wolf over Questing Beast and Jund last year, so it's not totally cut and dry, it just depends how your deck is. And in this kind of deck, if you don't have the food to back it up, and even when I was playing the food version, it just kind of seems that Questing Beast has put in a lot more work. And as we all know, we always draw 2 Questing Beast anyway, so if they get rid of one, you got the other. So this is that long match that we are up against the control player. Now this match goes on for quite a while, but really, I think this really highlights just the capabilities of what mono green can do if you've got a good build and you're playing it correctly. So we get out early Battle Mammoth. Again, when you're playing against control, I mean, against any deck really, like with mono green, you just want to be as aggressive as possible. Like it is that, but you definitely want to take the aggressive as possible plays. Because with certain, like it was a control game where I just go, right, turn to Yorvo, because that just seemed to be like, right, I can put it down tons of pressure with turn to Yorvo. As you see with Battle Mammoth there, although sure it never actually got in any damage, being able to like trade value essentially with like the Elspeth is just really, really good. So we've got the Questing Beast here, and I'm like, right, okay, let's just try and stick some damage down. Now, looking at this particular board, I'm kind of just wondering to myself why... Right, okay, right. I wanted to get rid of the Elspeth, but at this stage I'm like, did he even actually have anything in his grave that he could have gotten back with Elspeth? Was that really a necessary thing to do? I don't know, it might have been better to just play the Gemrazer as a guy in this scenario, but it's okay. Now, in terms of my resources, they are dwindling a little bit, so wanting to close the game out as quickly as possible. And as you can see here, like, had I played Gemrazer just as a guy, I would have had another guy on board, obviously, but we've got a Turntimber, and like that's came up like an amount of times with this deck. It's actually just good to be able to go like, right, what do I need from the top of my deck? Obviously, Vorinclex forces out the board wipe, and this guy's got a lot of mana. But at this point, I'm like, right, well, this is where Crawling Barrens really shows its value in these kind of scenarios. But unbelievably, he manages to like come back from this for a while. Like, it really looked like he was going to take it. And admittedly, it was a little bit of a top deck scenario, was actually what got me the win. But again, I mean, I still got the win. I think I played it really well because I could have totally fucked up. So we're pumping up this Crawling Barrens to just be extremely huge. Now, I would imagine that putting a Gemrazer... See, if I'd held the Gemrazer as well in my hand for a while, I could put the Gemrazer on the Crawling Barrens, which would probably have been like the absolute best case scenario. Now, these two Skyclaves were just like really bad, and at this point I'm reeling like, what am I supposed to do in this scenario? So we double pump it, and I'm like, I mean, the Crawling Barrens is huge at this point, like he needs to block, but no trample. He can just block forever, realistically speaking. I mean, that, and with the Dream Trawler just gaining him life like every single turn, he ends up using this land to like gain more life, draw 2 cards, which gains him more life and makes him deal more damage. Now you're looking at this and you're like, how the fuck did you win this? Good question, because I'm like, right, okay, how do I win this? I need to make sure that I can gain enough life with the 1 food that I've got and Scavenging Ooze, force out a block, then... So I've got some blockers on the ground, that's like irrelevant. I'm like, right, I need to like hope to God that I can generate enough mana to gain back just enough life that he can't pump his Dream Trawler up big enough in order to kill me with it. So that was like the scariest part of all this, really. So again, he swings in with the Dream Trawler, and I'm kind of shitting myself, but I'm like, right, okay, I can eat some food in response to this, and it puts me on 1. And I kind of wonder, like, did he even notice that I could do that? And I was like, oh shit, when he played the Omen, but I forgot you only draw the 1 card, you don't draw 2, so it's not so bad. But then he's mostly tapped out. He can't counter this because it's only 1 white that's up, and I'm like, holy shit. Because Stonecoil Serpent makes Dream Trawler irrelevant, and unless he has like targeted removal, which would have to be not multicolored, which he very well could have, but chances are if he's playing Azorius, he's mostly board wipes, so if he does board wipe me, he has to board wipe himself, and I've got Crawling Barrens, so it just felt really, really good. I'm like, this 1/1 Stonecoil Serpent really put in the work here, really, really did. Even when he puts down his own Crawling Barrens, like, this is it, like... I wonder if he thought that I just might not know, but, I mean, I would have scooped otherwise, right? So he knew his days were numbered. Thank God for the protection effect on the Stonecoil. Stonecoil just such a powerhouse of a card, it really, really is. And just bounces off, and that's GG right there, because he knows that he can't do anything. Which really makes me wonder, what was his hand? It just must be filled with counters. And even if he does board wipe me, it's not going to do anything. So that felt really good. That, like, winning that game was very, very nice. So now we're playing against Rakdos, and Rakdos is actually a fairly good matchup for us. It's not the worst thing ever. The Mire Triton? I think it's called Mire Triton. Those cards can actually be like a little bit of a pain simply because of the death touch. So you kind of have to work around that. We're going with the turn 2 Yorvo play. This might be turn... No, I think that was turn 2. Yeah, it was turn 2. And just hoping that we can make it just big, and that's just going to be good enough. Now we get rid of the Vorinclex because I can't do anything with that for turns, so there's really no point in just holding on to a card in my hand that just doesn't do anything. But I think that's something that you should definitely remember. You might have a power card in your hand, but if you can't play it, then you essentially have no card in your hand. And I think I'd just rather the options with other stuff rather than hedging my bets for later on. So we've got we've got a good amount of mana here. This is like 6, but not anymore. After using the Extinction event, we're down to 4, but it's cool. It's okay because we've got the Garruk, we've got Primal Might, we've got Lovestruck Beast. That's actually a good repertoire of cards to start putting down some more pressure. So I feel like I should probably have down-ticked the Garruk, really thinking about things. However, had I done that, you could just gotten rid of it, but I could have actually gotten like an amount of value out of it, so down-ticking it would have been better in retrospect. But it's not the biggest issue. Now, Lovestruck Beast is very nice because it allows Caryatid to essentially produce 1 extra mana next turn, and that comes up like all the time. So that's why I really like Caryatid over the Florahedron. But again, the Florahedron is probably like the technically better play, you know. But getting to play this, the Great Henge is sick because not only that, if we need to, we can use Primal Might, get rid of something. It just lets us be a bit more aggressive. We can start swinging in at this point. And we've managed to whittle away a lot of this guy's resources. And now we're going to use the Great Henge. Just fling the goose down. Just start drawing cards. Doesn't matter. Don't need to care anymore. Great Henge means you don't need to care. There's a reason why the card is so expensive. Hopefully I get to use my Great Henges before... before it gets rotated out. But, you know... It is what it is. So now we've got we've got the combo. We've got Vorinclex plus Great Henge. There's not really going to be a lot that he's going to be able to do at this point. Like, there's just not. Now, out comes Croxa, which you'd think could be a big issue, but all my guys are bigger. I can just get rid of a spare Great Henge. Who cares? I can just draw more cards than he can discard, so it just doesn't matter anymore. Fuck it. I'll just do whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to play Battle Mammoth for full cost, draw Primal Might, and that is game. Because then we just make one of them bigger. So the Vorinclex, I think we make the Vorinclex bigger, kill the Croxa, and then it just swings in for game. Very nice. Again, like the amount of games that just get closed because of Primal Might. Do not let anybody tell you that Primal Might is not the best green removal card currently, because it fucking is. Even if you're playing like a hard counter type strategy, don't be tempted to use Inscription of Abundance or any of that kind of garbage. Primal Might is just straight up better. So this guy's deck gets off to a terrifying start. Gets the 2 Lotus Cobra out, then does the cool mutate thing, starts generating like a whole bunch of free land. And I'm just looking at this and I'm like, fuck, this guy's just going to start pumping out some threats. But ultimately, they kind of end up being empty threats. So at this stage, I'm like, well, right, who cares? You might have all the mana you ever want, but I'm just going to start putting out Quest and Beast. Now, bearing in mind at this stage, God, how much mana must he actually have? He used 3, 4, 5. So he's got 4. Hasn't played a land. Now he has like 6 mana or something ridiculous. Like he's really going for it. Then he puts down that thing, and I'm just kind of reeling for a second. Like, Jesus, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And then I go, oh wait, I know what I'm supposed to do. Just play more green shit. So I figure that the Great Henge is obviously like the best play, like regardless. And because of the Death Touch on the Questing Beast, even if I use Primal Might, it would still kill it. But I'm able to, like, I've got enough mana that keeps the Questing Beast alive. And now I'm like, you know what? I am fine if he trades his mutated guy with the Questing Beast. Let him do it. I do not care. At this point, all of his resources are gone, and I've got a Great Henge. So, fuck you. I win the game. Even if you have, like, a billion scutes, you'd have to draw, like, 2 Fabled Passages a turn in order to bring this back. And that ain't happening. Especially my big tramply guys. So, feels pretty good. Feels pretty good. And the deck has performed, like, super well through Platinum. Maybe I've just so happened to have gotten a whole bunch of extremely favourable matchups. But currently, my win rate with this deck through Platinum is like 80%, which is kind of ridiculous. So I doubt it's ever going to be like 80%. But, you know, you probably get the nice sweet spot of, like, you know, 66% in Diamond. And I think we can all be completely fine with that. Now, again, another game that is getting won just on the back of Primal Might. Just really showing off how good Primal Might is with Trample guys. Which really might make you think maybe that Troll card from the new set is actually the way to go rather than Yorvo, just to get another Trample target for Primal Might. It very well might be the case that that's actually what is the best thing about green. Maybe I've cracked it right there at the end of the video. Anyway, thank you guys for your time. If you made it this far, please tell me in the comments. I'm actually kind of curious. If you made it this far, give me a comment. I'd like to know. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it kind of informative. And I will see you in the next one. I think I'm going to play Is It Tempo for the next one. But don't hold me to that. Don't hold me to that. Anyway, thanks a lot guys. Catch you later.